What's up, guys? All right, we're already getting folks in here. Appreciate you guys coming back. We got a special guest tonight, so we're going to give him a few minutes to join in as well. Hope everybody had a great week. I mean, I already got lots of hearts. I like it. Waldo, Justin, man, it's good to see you guys. Man, these days are just flying by now. The days and the weeks. I don't know about you guys, but we're all starting to get a little bit of a routine here, and I think things are becoming a little bit easier. I won't say they're easy, but they're becoming a little bit more routine, which is obviously makes the week go by a little faster and the days go by a little faster. Looks like JJ just joined in, so we're going to wait to see where he's at. There he goes. He just sent a request to me. But look, guys, just before we let JJ in, I just want to say this is the 4th week that I'm doing this now. You know, as we go through this process, as I said many times before, we're all kind of affected in some way. Some of us directly and others indirectly. You know, it could be financially affected by this. You could be actually affected by the virus yourself or your loved ones. But we're all in this together, and I feel like guys like myself and JJ and other guys out there that are doing their part to help bring the sport and our community together, our shooting community together. Kelly, how are you? I think this is what we were called to do at this time. You know, and without sounding too cheesy, I just want to say that it's an honor to be able to sit in front of you guys here for an hour once a week and to be able to talk shooting with you guys and make give you something to look forward to and something for me to look forward to as well, right? So we're all on that grind. We're all trying to find things to be able to surround ourselves with like-minded people, and this is that for me and hopefully for you guys as well. So definitely looking forward to chatting with you guys tonight. I'm excited. We have a special guest. I'm going to bring him on in just a second here. JJ Racaza is a great friend of mine. Many of you guys already know him. If you don't know him, you might have been living under a rock for a while. I'm not sure, but he's a really, really great person. I'm going to give him kind of a full intro when I bring him on, and maybe a quick funny story when I bring him on. But definitely want to bring him in to kind of pick his brain. I got a lot of questions from you guys over the last couple of days, kind of things you might want to ask JJ, and that's kind of how we're going to work this. I'm going to be kind of more of an interview guy, and I'm going to ask him questions that you guys provided me, and then I might add a little bit to it and maybe dig a little deeper and ask a little bit more personal questions of Jay and kind of his background. But I'm definitely excited to bring him on, and as we go through that, you guys fire away questions that you have here as well. We're not going to really probably get into much dry fire tonight, if any. I really want this to be, you know, maybe once a month type of a thing. So every week you guys come on with me. We talk for 30 minutes or so of what's on my mind, maybe gear related stuff. It could be training related questions, whatever it is. And then we typically dry fire for 20 to 30 minutes as well. So we'll continue to do that 3 times a month, but I'm hoping once a month I can bring in a special guest, and maybe that special guest is JJ every time if you guys like it. I don't know, but if not, we can bring in different folks each time. So yeah, we'll move forward. I'll see if I can bring him in. I'm new to the IG live thing. This is only my 4th session with you guys during the quarantine time. Let's see if I know how to do this with JJ here. Go live. This works. All right, so it's waiting on JJ. Now he should be dropping in any second. There he is. Look at that guy right there. Looks so mean.
That was my focus work mode.
Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming on,
Max.
dude.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me, man. This is
Absolutely,
awesome, man.
dude.
And everything you said was awesome, man. You're absolutely right on that one.
Cool, man. Yeah, so look, guys, I just want to do a quick intro. Like I said, you guys already know who this guy is. He's a top shot stud. If you don't know, season 1. Look, I got to be honest, man. I really wanted to do that with you guys, with you and Blake. That season 1, it was going to be, I knew it was going to be something special and something fun to do. I think Seaclander was on with you guys too. Dude, that would have been so much fun, but I don't know. I felt like, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this on a live feed, but I just felt like I was at that point in my career at that time when it was like a lose-lose for me, man. Like, you know, if you go into this as the pro shooter, shooting for Sig Sauer, and, you know, I just kind of started that deal with them, and I go into that, if I win it, it was going to be, oh yeah, you were supposed to win because you're a pro shooter. But if you lose, it's like, oh my God, you lost to, you know, somebody who's not a pro shooter. So, man, looking back though, like, I regret that decision. I should have just did it. So what if I lose? It would have been a hell of a fun time. But which kind of brought me to when you and I went to Las Vegas and we did the Big Gun 2. You know, what we did that 3-gun thing where it was like 8 episodes or something, and you and I lasted so long, man.
Gosh, we did.
Dude, I'll never forget you showed up with your rifle, and I'm like, why's he got a Seymour? Why's he got a Seymour on his rifle? What does he know that I don't know? You know, but I prepared hard for like 3 days. That's all I gave it. So when Brian called me to be a part of that show, guys, we're talking about the Hot Shots, which is a great TV show that I was a part of for a few seasons. It's a reality show. You can find it on YouTube. It's awesome. But anyway, the producer from that show came up with a new show, The Big Gun and The Big Gun 2. The first one, The Big Gun, I think was just for female shooters. And then The Big Gun 2, it allowed anybody to come out, any national or world level champion shooter. And he invited 10 people in, but it was a 3-gun event. And he invited myself, JJ, and Shane Coley as the pistol guys, I guess. Well, I had like literally 1 day of practice on the shotgun because it hurt so bad. I was like, dude, I'm not shooting any more slugs until I get there. So I'm not a shotgun shooter. I didn't know any better. Probably wasn't holding it correctly. But anyway, once I got to the event, I had Taryn Butler set up my Sig M400. So I had the 1-6 on top, and I had like a red dot on the side. Anyway, we get there the day before, and we're all zeroing, and JJ's trying to zero his rifle with a non-magnified Seymour. And I'm like, dude, I think this is a 3-gun match. Like, I think you probably want some magnification. I think we got in maybe like 2 or 3 episodes in, and he changed his optic. Didn't you change it?
Yeah, I did. Because here's the thing, what people don't know, right? There's so much trash talking, right? Jared Micklick, my first stage, I'm super nervous. I don't shoot 3-gun. I got my rifle the day before, and I practiced my shotgun that day. Like, you were there, trying to walk me through how to move with a shotgun. So I remember walking up to my first stage, nervous as hell, because there's so many things going on in 3-gun. And I walked by Jared Micklick, and literally he goes, "Hey, son, don't do that to yourself." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, I got my rifle, which is weird for a pistol shooter to have both your guns in your hand walking around the stage trying to set up. And I'm like, I was like, God dang it, I just got DQ'd. So I turn around and try to hide the guns real quick. And he looks at me, I'm like, "Jared, what'd I do? You got DQ'd?" He goes, "Nah, man." He goes, "You ever heard of parallax?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's where a dot is and it's not hitting where I'm aiming." And he goes, "Yeah, good luck with that Seymour." And I'm like, "Am I doing something wrong?" He goes, "You might want a 1x6 on that dot."
Man.
And that's when I was like, "Oh, I'm in trouble." I was like, if I make it to this first round, I'm gonna be lucky.
Dude, that was funny. We had so much fun though, man. That's like, that's why I was at a point in my career then where I had already won everything I wanted to win and more. And like, it didn't matter if I went out and got beat by other pro shooters that shot 3-gun because there was really no pressure on me, you, or Shane.
Yep.
And oddly enough, dude, we all made it pretty deep. I think you and I made it just about on every episode, like all 8 or 10 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun though. But man, looking back, I wish I could have did that the Top Shot thing with you guys. I know that was fun. But anyway, guys, just want to really quickly say, JJ, that's kind of probably how most of you guys met. JJ was on Top Shot, but he's so much more than that, man. He's just a great person, a great competitor, a great father, great husband, always going about business the right way. One of the hardest working dudes I know, if not the hardest working guy I know. Won the USPSA Nationals, I think, the Field Challenge. I think he might have been second at World Shoot twice. Is that right?
3 times, bro.
3 times? Oh my gosh, Jim.
In a row.
Gee. All right. Well, look, this is what's going to make it so much sweeter when we win it this year. So this year in Thailand, when you get that win, man, it's going to make it that much sweeter. So we'll be rooting for you, and I'm sure everybody on this feed is rooting for you as well. Unless you shoot production optics, then I'm not rooting for you. I'm rooting for a solid second place finish for you. But if you shoot open, go get it. Nah. So look, I just appreciate you jumping on. We've already been 10 minutes at it. I want to dive right into kind of the mindset of JJ Racaza and what makes you go, what makes you tick. One of the cool things about you and I is that, we come from very similar backgrounds as far as we got started shooting really young. Your father got you involved. My father got me involved. Our fathers were inspirations to both of us, growing up. And so we kind of had that family camaraderie. So we have very similar backgrounds and work ethics, I believe, but once we got out of high school, you and I kind of took different paths. And, 20 years later, we find ourselves really in the same position as pro shooters. But, I joined the Army. I basically did the pro shooter thing at 17 years old as quickly as I could, where you kind of did the different route. You went to college for a bit, and then you did the Air Marshals, got out of that and started doing your own business in Vegas with Magnus Sports. Of course, I could hear the kids in the background. You had the kids with you. Where you and Jess were not always together at times, which made it challenging for your family. And all this time, you were out there still competing at a high level, winning as many matches as you could, but you weren't able to compete in all the matches you wanted to shoot. And so anyway, if you can just kind of elaborate maybe a little bit on, like, for me to hear, and for the guys at home to hear, like, when did that transition start of, like, man, so I was a weekend shooter, just enjoying myself and trying to balance family and life, to one day I decide I want to be a pro shooter and do this for real, because you're already 40 years old, Jay. Tell me a little bit about your life.
Oh my gosh, 40 years old. That just happened, what, 2 days ago? Or was it yesterday?
Yeah.
But I've been actually living like over 40 since last year. So
Yeah, man.
it was a surprise to me. I'm like, oh, still only 40? That's a good thing. That's a year. But yeah, no, basically it was for the longest time, I focused on my career. Being growing up in an Asian family, it was one of those things that kind of was like, hey, get your career. Shooting's a hobby. Shooting's a hobby. I'm like, okay, sounds good. I don't know how to make money out of this, or how to make a living out of this. It wasn't about making money. It was just being, trying to sustain and continue. And give me a second. My kids are yelling. Hey guys, lower down your volume just a little bit. All right. I'm talking to Mr. Max here. Please talk to him. Thank you.
That's a lot.
Apologize, Max.
That's a lot nicer than your dad would have did to you.
Listen. All right. Anyway. So with all that said, right, I was basically, like you said, a weekend shooter. I could shoot once a week. My range was about 65 miles away from my house, so it was impossible. And then I worked during that time, 2002 to 2004. I was doing contracting, all that stuff, and then I jumped in with the Air Marshals, the Department of Homeland Security, and I did that whole bit for about 10 years. It was kind of like the career first, and I tried to actually stop shooting 2008. Not many people know this, but I actually tried to quit shooting 2008 because I just made it to a team in the government, and I was like, oh, this is a specialized team. I'm gonna focus on trying to just save my life if I get into a situation. So the only thing that kept me going, I shot one match that year, and it was the Nationals, and I placed second overall. I don't know who won it. It was in Bend, Oregon. I remember I think it was you that won it, and I got second. I think Chris or Casey was third or fourth or whatever it was. Of course, I think it was you that won it, right? Because at that time you were crushing everyone. And I was like, man, I shot one match this year and I got second. I was like, that's not bad. And I came back to my team. My team was like, dude, you can't quit. You got to go for us. And I was like, I guess maybe I'll take it a little more seriously. And that's when they kind of got in my head going, maybe I can do something with this shooting. It was never really about making a career. It was just about trying to see if I can become the best, right? Just probably like you. And then making a career out of it just kind of happened as a byproduct of what we did throughout the years and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, 2015, an opportunity came about. I was in the academy teaching, and then they were kind of trying to send me back to headquarters, which is in DC. And I didn't want to raise my family in that hustle and bustle life. I wanted to move out to either South or West Coast where I could shoot a little bit more and really focus on my shooting, because I really, like you said, was getting old and all that stuff. So I decided, you know what, let's take a chance at it, start your own business and run your own company, whatever, and see if we can make a run with this. And man, it took about 2 to 3 years to kind of get in the groove of things. And man, I've had the best shooting kind of in my life, in my entire career within the last 3 to 4 years because of the change. That ability to be able to do what I need to do, as opposed to working, depending sometimes 10 to 16-hour days.
Yeah, man. And I can say, like, as a friend and as a competitor of yours for so many years, I mean, you've always been that fierce competitor. You've always been locked in, and like you said, you came out and got second place that one year with one match. But I think, for me, I was so proud and so happy for you guys and your family when Jess got there and you guys were finally together. And you were able to kind of do what you love to do. You were able to spend some time on the range and start teaching a lot more, which I know you're extremely passionate about. So now, I mean, I feel like you're the most active guy, out there running courses, going to the matches. You're so approachable. So to me, I think that's one of those unique things. Like you don't really see it that often. You don't see that humbleness that often in a lot of these, like, other athletes. I'm not saying other athletes are not where they, need to be, but there's some guys out there. My son was just showing me somebody on YouTube, some other athlete, people were doing an interview and he wouldn't answer questions. He wouldn't chat with people. But obviously with you, it's not that way. Like you said, it's just a byproduct of, all the hard work you put in. You just kind of became a pro shooter. And much like me, man, like I didn't, when I was 13 years old, I made a conscious effort. I made a conscious decision to say, hey, I want to be the next Rob Latham, the next Doug Koenig, Jerry Barnhart, Jerry Mitchell. Like, these are the things I wanted to do and be in life. So I didn't really give myself any other out. I joined the Army. I started doing those things, but it's the hard work and dedication that we put in but it's not losing focus of the fact of where we came from and the people that we love. And so I just think that's cool, man. I think, your humbleness that you have, the approachableness that you have, I think it's what makes you special, and it's what makes you fill classes immediately. I mean, I know guys contact Jess all the time for classes, and you're busy. Me, I'm included on that. I'm always contacting her like, hey, when are we going to do the next pro shooter experience? Because without JJ, it's not the same. So, man, you give everybody so much of your time. So anyway, I know everybody's so thankful to hear kind of your background and your path on that. But another great important question that I have for you, and is, again, we have very similar kind of paths, early on in our lives, and then we took a different route over the last 10 to 20 years, but now we're together as a pro shooter. I'm with SIG, you're with Beretta. When I first joined with SIG, I think maybe 11 years ago or so, there were so many people that were like, what is Max doing going to SIG? There's no way he's going to win anymore. What is he doing? What is he thinking? And the only reason why was because back then we weren't known as a competitive shooting company. We were to hell and back reliability, 226, 229, law enforcement, military type of equipment. But before I tell my story, I just want to kind of hear your story. Why Beretta? Why they could? Because I know you and I are good friends. Like, we've chatted about a lot of companies, and because we're such good friends and we're in the industry, we hear a lot of jobs that become available. And I remember approaching you about a few other jobs, and you're like, nah, I'm not ready. Nah, I don't want it. But Beretta was like, bam. Tell me why.
It's a real cool story, man. I just think it's just, I feel like everything that I've done in my life has been luck, right? I get presented an opportunity. It was lucky. I was at the right time, the right place, right skill set, whatever. Same thing with Beretta. I was like, you and I have talked a lot. We do a lot of talks behind the scenes, and we get a lot of these jobs offers. And you remember, you were like, hey, dude, would you be interested in something like this? And I remember I was like, that's not the right fit for me. I kind of want to go in the route of whatever I wanted to do, right? Single action type guns and not polymer frame and all that stuff. And then eventually I got CZ or Tanfoglio and CZ kind of not fighting for me, but offering me a real sponsorship. And I was like, oh, this is legit. I was like, I like it. And Eric and I were talking in the background, going, hey, we could be teammates again and work with CZ and all that stuff and develop these new guns. They already have a good, solid lineup. And then they just couldn't get me the gun. That was the craziest thing. That I had a contract literally ready for me to just sign. I was okay with it. And the gun, all I needed to do was test the gun in the match. I wanted them to send me a gun, the checkmate, to shoot it in open and see what happens, see how I react and see how I can train with it. They just couldn't get me the gun. And then it was just the opportunity where someone sent me a text and said, hey, this is Beretta. We'd love to see if what you think about our gun. We know you already signed with CZ. And I was like, I didn't actually sign with CZ yet, but I want to test the gun. And that's kind of how it happened. And then Beretta showed me the gun. And man, I was really blown away with their ability to show me what they have on their first version 1, basically, competition performance gun, because they never really went in there. And they're a big enough company to kind of give you kind of the support that you need. And the first thing I said was like, how much support will I get? Because I've worked with other companies where it was kind of one of those where, yeah, we'll give you all the support, but then eventually when you start giving your feedback and all that stuff, it was kind of like put in the back burners. They said you'd be the #1 priority, and everything you're saying would be 100% taken back into the factory. And then as a matter of fact, we'll bring you to the factory to make your adjustments. And I'm like, okay, whatever it was, right? I tested their gun, man, and I was blown away. I said, I'm going to need to shoot at least 2,000 rounds, at least on this gun, to be able to say that I'm familiar with the gun. And then once I started firing with the gun, man, they literally brought like 3 people to load 10 magazines for me. And I just shot the gun till it tried to melt it. And they had 3 guns for me to cycle through. And it was about 1,200 rounds in about 23 minutes. And I fell in love with the production gun. And I'm like, well, give me the open gun. And then I went to the open gun and even fell in love with that even more, right? And I was like, oh my God, I just shot 3,000 rounds in about an hour. I've never done something like that, but this is ridiculous. My hands hurt. And I was like, I really love the gun. I like the way it shoots. I can grow with this, and it's something that I know I can win. I was like, this is going to be a risk for you guys because you're coming with me as an older guy. And then also it's a risk for me to take my opportunity because at that time I was really honing in with shooting my 2011. And then, man, they brought me to their factory. They flew me in and they gave me a corner. They basically literally gave me everything I needed. They gave me like the top lead engineer. And I was like, hey, I need this. I want this change. It's like easy enough. And he prints it out and 3D printer comes back with me for an hour. And we go test it in the range. Now I got a trigger that's shortened and flat. I got a thumb rest taped up on my gun. And I'm like, gosh, I've never seen this kind of support. And it's happening this quick for a big company. And it was amazing. So I was like, hey, listen, I was like, I'm very happy so far. And I hope this relationship continues. And it kind of went on from there. And literally, man, it's killing me because the shutdown happened because I was literally just falling into like in line with where I needed with my gun.
Yeah.
And then I tested it in Henry's Cup, that was my last match, and it felt really good. There was a couple of things I had to make an adjustment, but other than that, the gun's been, knock on wood, man, knock on freaking wood. It's been great. I can't wait to shoot it more in matches and
Man.
prove people, because there's a lot of naysayers out there, just
Dude,
like you.
exactly, man, exactly. Like I totally get it, and that was like with me when I got out of the army, and I had a lot of companies that I was chatting with too. SIG was just the perfect fit for a number of reasons. And when I went on 2 interviews at SIG. The first one, was just to go shoot the guns. And when I shot the guns, they were so incredibly easy to shoot, and they were so soft. I was like, wow, this is incredible. Especially the original 226 X5, the single action only. Man, that gun is it's like a boat, man. That
I
thing does.
remember that gun.
Dude, I can still to this day, that's the gun I can shoot the fastest of any other gun on the planet. That 226 X5 L1 is what we used to call it. But anyway.
That was the one that you could do like open, limited, and production all at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
man.
I remember, I'm like, this is what they need to do. They're doing it right.
Yeah, dude, it had the adjustable trigger. It was super slick. And but for me, it was the people too at SIG. Just like you said, like you feel that sense of camaraderie, everybody pulling in the same direction. It's a huge company, but I can get these things done to get what I needed to get for not only for me, but it trickles down to the rest of the product line. So what's awesome about what you're doing with Beretta is that's trickling down to the rest of the product line for them. So they're obviously, that's a huge privilege, I'm sure, to have you on their team, which is great for all of us, right? It's great for you, it's great for them, it's great for me, because now we have more pro shooters out there, and it's always great to see somebody as deserving as you get that role. But it's also good for Beretta because, man, maybe they haven't had that before, where they got a guy like you who's got all this experience who can put this, to work for them. But anyway, yeah, I think it was a challenge that I'm sure you had trying to figure things out. But I think what won you over is when you were over there. I know you posted a picture of a pizza they gave you too. Talk to us about that pizza, man.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, I love food, right? In general, I just love food, and I eat everything. I had New York pizza. I grew up in New York. I worked in New York. Chicago pizza. Gosh darn it! I went to Italy, and they gave me this one pie. I thought, and the sad thing was we were supposed to share it, but I thought it was just for me. I took one bite, and it was the best pizza I have ever had. I can't even explain it. It was just they very little meat, but it was just the sauce, the ingredient, the cheese that they put on it. It blew my mind away, and I was like, hey, listen, whatever you guys do, just keep feeding me Italian food, and I will sign anywhere in the dot.
Yeah, man. I'm sure they brought you some donuts too, so that was good. But look, hey, I know we got to keep moving on. A good question that I got from some of the guys here was, how do you balance, and what's kind of your balance between live fire and dry fire? I know you're really big into dry fire, but yeah, maybe talk to us a little bit about how you balance your live fire and your dry fire, and if you take any breaks throughout the year at any point.
Yeah, I saw that question get put up. That was a really good question. I thought about it today, and it's kind of weird. It changed throughout the years, right? For the longest time, I wasn't allowed to shoot like in the early part of my career. My career literally changed about 2015 when I left the government and then started doing my own thing. Obviously, it was hard, like you mentioned, because I didn't have my wife here. I had the 2 kids, and I couldn't shoot as much. So I dry fired my butt off. So basically, it was dry fire for about 7 to 14 days and one live fire session between that. So it was very hard, but it was one of the only things that I knew that kept me somewhat relevant and competitive. So when I would pick up my gun to shoot at the live range, I didn't have that rusty feeling. It was just figuring out the timing of my gun, the speed that I can shoot it, and all that stuff. And I would just focus on the fundamentals. But otherwise, pointing the gun, running with the gun, reloading, and presenting with the gun felt very natural because it was there through dry fire, right? Recently, since just moving here and the family being whole again, and it's been awesome. And she's been running a lot of things and backing me up with all this stuff, completely supporting me, just like Jen is with your career. I've been able to shoot a lot more. So now my ratio essentially changed. Now I do about 2 to 3. Actually, let's go with average of 3 dry fires to 1 live fire. So it would be 3 dry fire sessions average, sometimes 2, sometimes 4. And then I would go and check it on my live fire. And really, I'm focusing on 2 different things. I'm not trying to test my what I do with my dry fire to my live fire. What I'm really focusing on now is dry fire. I just focus on movement and my manipulation. When I do live fire, I focus on strictly shooting. My everything else in my movement, I'll fix it later. Maybe I'll make a note. Ooh, I kind of had a couple of bad draws or bad reloads or bad presentations. I'll fix that later on dry fire. But today, I'm going to focus on pulling my trigger, just watching my sights and how I grip my gun and how the gun's tracking on back on target.
Yeah, man. Because I know you've always been really big into dry fire. You know, that's some things that we talked typically on this on Friday nights. I dry fire with the guys. We chat for 30 minutes or so, maybe a little more because I talk a lot. But as we go through through the chatting, then we kind of dry fire based upon whatever we talked about. Like last week, we talked about transition, so I did a little bit of dry fire on that, and I talk in great detail about how I dry fire at slow paces, or at least half of my dry fire is done at maybe half speed or technically correct speed. Because it's so incredibly important. And I know you go super hard at your dry fire at times too, to where you got these giant calluses on your hands that I always see you have. But I mean, do you take any breaks at any point throughout the year? I mean, is it like, hey, it's November, December, I'm going to just chill with the family, or is it just all go for you?
Yeah, so I tell everyone that, at least my students and stuff like that, I try to dry fire for about 300 days out of the 365, out of the year. 300 days. And I know some of them will be my birthday, I don't dry fire. My kids' birthdays, I don't dry fire. Christmas, Thanksgiving, sometimes a weekend lobstering, I don't dry fire. Those are the days that I'll miss, right? Give or take a few here and there. But yeah, like December comes around, I literally put my guns away. Not necessarily put my guns away completely. Now that I'm here in Vegas, I'll go out and shoot once in a while just to kind of play around. And it's my playtime, not really focusing on anything, just kind of shooting and keeping everything sharp. But around December, I usually slow everything down and I'm not really chasing anything. I'm not trying to work on special things. I'm just kind of enjoying the shooting, even though it's as much fun as it is. This is my time to let loose, where I come up with crazy challenges, play with my boys. Like I'll train with my guys, my friends. I'm like, hey, let's go 6 people. Let's go train at the range together. And I don't really care. To me, it's just about hanging out, kind of trying to give back for free. Like I'll teach a class, for free for my guys. I'm like, hey, come out and practice with me, and then we'll train, and then I'll tweak them and stuff like that. But it's not really. Those are the times of December, January, and February. It's kind of my off time, but then I start picking it up again. But in Jersey, for a while with winter, dude, they would stop at September. Like I didn't want to go out there if it was anything lower than 60 degrees, and I wouldn't start again until like March-ish.
Yeah, man.
Right?
So you were kind of forced into breaks back then,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, man. Same with me. So like living in the South, weather's always pretty good. But back in the day, like I would always take from Thanksgiving until like the middle of January. I would always get 2 months off. That's where I would save all my leave from the army, and I would just go home for like a long period of time within that stretch. And I would just take some downtime. But back then, I was just shooting matches. I really didn't have any other responsibilities besides teaching the soldiers that was in my duty. And when I was off from work, I mean, I was off, so I didn't really have a whole lot to do. So I was kind of forced into those breaks as well. I had the opportunity to get a break. But now, man, it's just like you, it's tough to find those breaks because, we push so hard, but even when we're on a break, we're still shooting. We're still teaching classes, or we're still helping others, or we're still still have a gun in our hand. So I think it's important that I just want to make sure everybody understands that are watching this and that watch it later. While JJ does take breaks, while I do take breaks, it's taking breaks with the gun in our hand, where we're not necessarily chasing something because, man, it's so hard. Like, we've won so many things that we've always wanted to win, but you can't really enjoy them because you're always so worried about chasing the next one. I mean, one thing that stuck with me that Tom Brady said, where somebody said, hey, which Super Bowl means the most to you? And he says the next one. And I love that, dude, because it's so true. If you're a competitor and you're a grinded out winner and you love that work ethic, that you live for it, that's what it's about. It's about the next one. Doug Koenig is another great example. He's a great mentor of mine, good friend of mine. I'm planning on beating him in Madden tomorrow. Just, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. But so he's won like 19 or 20 Bianchi Cups. And I've been to his house and I've seen them all. They're crazy. I mean, it's unbelievable to have that kind of focus and dedication for the next one. You don't really get to enjoy it much. So the time you can take out friends or new shooters or people from school that your kids are friends with, their parents, you take them out to the range. That's kind of the downtime for me as well. Just having fun, introducing people to shooting and bringing out folks that you might not normally get to go out and shoot. But, speaking of dry fire, one thing I wanted to bring up, Jay, is this new dry fire mag. I posted it on my stories a couple of days ago. This is from Double Alpha. Now, we've all had dry fire mags in the past. At least I did. I don't remember the name of that old one. It was like an old blue one, injection molded. Do you remember that old blue one? I don't remember the name of it. Yeah. But so we had that, and then Blake Maguez is another good friend of ours. He always has a dedicated mag with dummy rounds that he used to use. But none of those mags really ever worked for me. This is the new Double Alpha dry fire mag. It's going to be out very soon. But I wanted to show you and show everybody here because I did put a little teaser out about it the other day. So there's so many different maybe there's a couple different dry fire mags out there, but none of them truly lock up or give you that realistic real world feel. Once it's in there, it's moving around a bunch. But anyway, the unique thing about this double alpha mag is obviously number one, it's purple with a red follower, so you're never going to mix it up with, actual mags at home or dummy rounds to live rounds. It's obviously much safer. But it has these steel inserts in it that creates the weight that we're looking for, and it's super durable and super rigid. But the unique thing is their patent pending spring follower. So I want to get you some of these, although we don't have them in Beretta just yet. There's like STIs, so basically 2011s, 1911s, 320s, CZs, and Glocks. And they're set up in a way with the base pads that it can accept guns with mag wells, guns without mag wells. But anyway, the cool thing about this is that unique follower, that spring that it has. As you go to insert it, it feels like a live mag going into where that bullet's kind of pressing up into the bottom of the slide there. And when you eject it, it just flies right out like a real mag as well. So anyway, I just wanted to show you this. I know we need to get some Berettas for you, but everybody else at home, when we start dry firing next week again, I'm going to have these in my gun, and hopefully by then you might be able to have some in your gun as well, to give you that same realistic, real-world feel that you're looking for. They're going to be $19 individually, and there's a 3-pack for $49.99 as well. But anyway, I wanted to bring that up because you talk about dry fire a lot. You deal with dry fire a lot. I mean, why not have one of these in your gun and get that kind of realistic feel at the same time? So anyway, just wanted to kind of bring that up. I know we don't have the Beretta ones yet, but we're going to get them for you.
Could you rack those, Max?
Yeah, dude, that's another cool thing about it. So check it out. So once I put it in, so I can work on my loads, I can put it in, and I can rack like I'm doing my empty starts, and it won't lock the slide.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
That's one of the, I was working with it a lot last night when it first came in, or 2 nights ago, whatever. I was like, man, this is exactly what I've been looking for in a dry fire mag. So I do like it, especially getting ready for World Shoot, doing those empty starts. It's good to have.
No, by the way, speaking of World Shoot, I heard from a really good source when I showed you that instant, and I called around a couple more times because I haven't heard any official word. They're exploring different opportunities in trying to release it and still go for it. The one is the same date, the next one is the next year date, and then the one is somewhere in springtime next year, which I think is going to be a little bit hard. So those are the 3 options that they're playing with right now, but none of them have made any official commitment yet in terms of World Shoot.
Yeah, I saw we got a few of those questions that popped in tonight. I didn't know if you wanted to chat about it because I know you know some of the guys there, but that's good to know, man, that they haven't officially canceled yet because
none.
And I know, we all want more time to prepare, but hey, 6 months, I'll be ready to go.
I'm ready to go right now.
I hope we have it, dude. I want to be there when you win your first gold medal. I'd love to win
yes, sir.
Division. It'd be awesome to do it together, man. So yeah, man, for sure. Another question I have for you is one of your biggest. I don't know if you can remember this, but maybe kind of like the biggest training breakthrough. Like what was that one thing that you were like, man, this is it. What's that training breakthrough for you that was able to help you get over the hump of maybe that A class level, kind of getting into that grandmaster level and becoming a winner in the sport?
It was sad, right? Because it wasn't when I turned like master to grandmaster. It was like I got grandmaster. I think I started in '99 in the U.S. I started in 1988 in the Philippines. Stopped '93 to move when we moved here, and it didn't really start again until '99. So '99, when I met you, was my first year. And then 2000, I think you said you almost won it. I think you placed 5th in Open in Nationals 2000, right? I think you said it
in 2000. I think I was 3rd 2000. Yeah. It was
third 2000. You almost could have won it.
Yeah,
right. I think you almost could have won it or something on the last stage, right? You just weren't ready for it. I was shooting limited in iron sights, and then I had 17 mics and I placed 9th overall, but I won the shoot-offs, the man versus man. So I beat Bobby, Tajat, and Bear Gone. Everyone was like, who the hell is this kid?
Hey, the shoot-offs were awesome back then too, man.
Oh my gosh, that was the best thing, right? When you have to line up, that was the best thing in the world. But anyway, it was one of those things that like I would have opportunity, like 2001 Nationals. I essentially won the Nationals, but Jerry Barnhart got a reshoot after we all shot that last stage because this popper didn't fall correctly, and he beat me, I think, by like 1.2 points or something like that. So that I heard about it when I left the range that I had lost the match because Jerry Barnhart got a reshoot, whatever, right? So it was one of those. And in 2002, I was winning it by like 60 points going to the last 2 stages, and I get DQ'd. Remember, I almost shot my foot. Like I was just trying to finish the last 2 stages. I was like 60 points at that.
I remember that, man.
My gosh.
And I remember somebody gave you a hard time. I'm not gonna name names, but man, That was messed up. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Travis Tomasi, kudos to him, gave me like a nice prop when he went up and grabbed his trophy or whatever. But anyway, it was one of those things that I didn't have a breakthrough yet. It was just like, oh, I'm good enough now. I think I can win it and continue. But that DQ really messed me up. Mentally, it changed something in my head, and it was very hard for me to fight through it as much as I tried to deny it. But it was one of those things, I think 2008 is the same year that I was trying to quit, and it was stop shooting. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on trying to hit. I know I'm not as fast as everyone. I got to just try to focus on my footwork because that's what I feel like I'm good at because I train that a lot. And then I was like, I'm not a good shooter right now in terms of pulling a trigger and speed. I'm just going to try to focus on the fundamentals and learning how to pull my trigger correctly. So I'll execute the shots I need to correctly when it's on, when I need it, and when it's required of me. And I remember that year was just focusing on learning to pull the trigger. And I was training a lot with my duty gun because that was the gun that I was carrying with me every day. And I remember that translated into what I would do with my 2011. It was just a lot lighter. I went from 12 to 6 pound trigger press on my duty gun to a 1.5 pound, 2 pound trigger. And then I remember thinking, I'm like, man, if I just focus on this and I play second all year, what if I can do that faster? If I could just do this, and that's when I started seeing my accuracy start moving up. And as a GM, it was kind of cool to see that I was still just as fast, maybe a little slower because I wasn't as active, but I was more or if more or less more accurate, if not the same accuracy as everyone else that we were chasing at the time, right? You or whoever it was. And it kind of came together again 2009 when you and I went at it at our last stage. I was leading by pretty good the margin. My gun broke, and then you take the freaking win again, just usual. It's all good. Take
I was
advantage
just
of
there to clean it up, dude. I was just there to clean it up. It could have been
Max,
anybody else. At least it was
Max
me.
is a freaking shark. Max goes, oop, there's my door. I'm gonna go right through it. Kick that freaking
Yeah,
door
man. I'm
wide
sorry,
open.
dude. I had kids to feed too, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, so it's kind of one of those. I'm like, I finally figured it out. I was like, this is what I'm going to focus on. And it was another one of those focus on just the trigger. And that was my breakthrough, is that I'm going to focus on the way I pull my trigger, manipulate it correctly. I don't know always pull my trigger this way, but I'm going to pull it on these specific type of targets. And then it took me a while to really understand it. And that was my breakthrough. And then sure enough, it's, as you and I worked with each other, you and I share the same students here and there. What I focus on in my training and stuff like that, and how I correlate that and tie that into my transitions, to my movements and exits and all these other things.
Yeah, so I think that kind of leads me to the next question. You kind of hit on a little bit of that, but maybe you can kind of talk a little bit about your mental preparation as you're leading up to a match. So I mean, I know you talked a lot about in great detail, kind of some getting over that mental hurdle there, but what are you thinking about leading up to a match? This is a very similar question you asked me earlier this week, but kind of what are you thinking leading up to a match? Maybe it's a month leading up to it, maybe it's 2 weeks leading up to it, but where's that mental mindset at? And then once you get there, where's that mental mindset at?
It's like what you said. You can't fake it. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm the best shooter right now. I feel confident and I'm gonna wreck everybody." You can't just fake it. It's really what you can do, and understanding that. And when something arises and I put some random targets and I can execute it, targets that are harder than I would probably see it in the match, I'm executing it correctly in 9 out of 10 times or 8 out of 10 times, right? That's a very high percentage. And that's when I start feeling that confidence. When I start feeling that confidence, and it happens multiple times throughout the year that I peak and all that stuff, where I start to really bring in and just start talking to myself. I go, hey, if you just do your game and finish your game, if they beat you, that's fine. That means they're better than you at this moment. Then figure it out. At least you shot your best and you can measure yourself against how much you lost by, right? And if you don't, then continue on and see how much you can gain, or how close were they to you? Was it their speed? Was it their accuracy? Maybe then you can polish it up on the next match. And it's kind of one of those things that you and I talked about it. When you go to the match, you're just shooting against yourself. And it's the hardest thing in the world because, like you said, you go out there or someone goes out there and blazes the run and you're like, I can do exactly just that and better. I will crush this. And then it's like this silent mind and you're going, no, this is not the plan. We got a long way to go. We can't win it. We can't win the match here in the first stage. We got to stick to the plan and just solidly. You put thousands of rounds in practice, and you just got to do just exactly what you did. And I have to shoot what I shoot off basically from what I see and what I feel, and it goes over and over. It's a cycle that I talk to myself over and over. I do have affirmations that I say to myself and all that. I'm not going to say it out loud because it's dumb, right? It sounds stupid to everyone else, but it makes me feel
sense
great.
to you. Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah. And then it's kind of one of those things that every match, it's as soon as I win, I feel like my bullseye just got bigger. So every time I win, I feel like the bullseye gets bigger and I have to work harder just because now everyone's eyes is on you, right? And it's kind of that hunger feeling. My dad, like you said, used to say it. He's like, you're only as good as your last match. So if you lost your last match, he goes, figure it out and then bounce back and see what you can do in the next match. Don't dwell on it. Don't spend time. Break it down and keep moving forward. And he goes, stick your head up and just have a thick skin. And it took, obviously you and I have been doing it for a while. We've had a lot of failures, and I think the failures is where we learn a lot from.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I feel the same way. I mean, that mental mindset is so important, and being able to shoot within yourself and not worrying about what JJ does or what these other guys do for me. It's so hard too because, like I said, we're all human, and we're like, man, that was an unbelievable run. I mean, like when I shoot Steel Challenge against you guys and KC and BJ and those guys, and you watch them just slaughter a run, and then you're the next dude on the line. And it's like there's no meat left on the bone. Like I can't do it. I can't do anything better than that. I can only screw up here if I try to perform that. So it's definitely a tough thing to kind of focus on. I mean, and because you have so much knowledge and information, I mean, you're one of the greatest instructors that I know, without a doubt. That's why I bring you back every year, or I ask you to come back every year to the Pro Shooter. I mean, you're phenomenal at it, and you give so much. We're both extremely passionate about that. But this is a tough question that I get sometimes, and if it wasn't you, or maybe if it wasn't me, let's say it's none of us on this call here today, who is one other person you might send some students to, or who is one other person you might recommend to people on here right now, or maybe let your kids go train with someday? Who's that one other person? I know there's a few that you would like to say, but who's that one other person that you say, that's the guy?
Just one.
And I'll answer it when you're done. You go.
Just one.
Just one.
There's so many.
It's so hard, I know.
Oh. What's crazy? I'm gonna say him, and probably people are gonna be surprised why, and it's because I've worked with him and I've seen how he commanded a team of SEALs, a big class of just specialized unit.
That's what I want. Hear it, yeah.
He's multi-platform. He defends his competition. He's won some, and he's focused more on the defensive side. Is Mike Seaclander. I love the way he commands presence and stands. I've never seen anyone stand in front of a class and control the pace of the class, the conversation of the class. It's amazing to watch him, and he's a very good speaker as well. So I've actually went through the government and through classes with him as an instructor, and I was a student. And then I actually got an opportunity as well to contract with him and work alongside with him with other military guys, whether it was military, law enforcement, or whatever. It was really cool to see both sides. So I give him, if it wasn't you, it would be Mike Seaclander. It would be my number one. There's a lot of top ones, right? But
there's a lot. There's a lot of them out there too. I mean, and the thing is, you don't have to be a 20-time national champion, a 10-time world champion to be one of the very best instructors. There's a lot of people who might be on here right now who are amazing instructors that we both know. But Mike is definitely high on my list as well. I think I've only had probably 4 instructors at the Pro Shooter over the last 5 years of the Pro Shooter experience. And Mike was with us last year. He's phenomenal, man. His background is, says everything you say about him. His military background, law enforcement background, competitive shooting, defensive background. He's so knowledgeable, yet he can relay that information to others that where people can understand it. But I think one of my greatest friends too, that I think if I had to send somebody else to, it's unfortunate that this guy doesn't teach anymore. He's so busy working at Remington as a pistol product manager now. But he's one of the most phenomenal instructors. He's the guy that I learned how to teach from. He was one of my early mentors in the game, Travis Tomasi. And I don't know if Travis is on here right now, but I try to give him credit every chance that I get. I think he's maybe 10 years older than me.
Is he?
Yeah, I think so.
He doesn't look it.
Dude, he doesn't, man. He's had that bald head for so long. Everybody just thinks he's old all the time, but he's not that old.
He's getting bigger. Oh my gosh.
But no, I just think for me, it's like watching him, because I was fortunate. Like I brought you in when I was in the Army. I brought you in for an interview to shoot a little bit, and you decided to go a different path. I brought Chris Tilley in, Blake Maguez. I brought a few people down to the shooting team, and Travis Tomasi was one of the guys. Like, hey, we were on the World Shoot team together going to South Africa in 2002. So we trained together for a week leading up to the match, and then we shot the match together. We won the gold medal. That was super awesome because that was the first time I was on the men's U.S. team. God, I guess that was almost 20 years ago now. But it was me. Dude, it was a crazy team. And there was only one other team that I thought was as good as this one, and you were finally on it because of your traveling situation.
11.
Yeah. Dude, you were never allowed to be on the team because you were always traveling and couldn't make it. But it was me, Barnhart, Ty Jarrett and Travis Tomasi, which I thought was an incredible team. And then the other team was, I think it was Greece, right? It was me, you,
Yeah,
KC, and Chris Tilley. Was
and
that
Chris
right?
Tilly. Yeah,
Man, yeah, that was a good team back then too.
we broke the world record there, and we still have the world record in terms of highest points combination overall points combined.
Man, see, that's a whole nother topic of discussion. We can talk about how you select the right team. Maybe that's part three. But no, man, but Travis was so awesome when I brought him in for that week and we trained together. Man, we talked the same terminology and we believed the same things. And just watching him go through work. And, back then he was maybe 30, 32 years old around there. And I was like in my early 20s or probably like early 20s. So just to watch him work and I was like, okay, when you go back home, I want you to go to your recruiter, sign up for the Army, and you're coming on my team. And he did it. He was like, yeah, dude, I have I have a car business at home, but my dad can run that. I'm going to go to the Army and do what I love to do. And then he and I kind of hit it off. So I learned so much from him, watching him teach other soldiers. And then we started our first training business, Double Impact Training. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but
I remember this.
dude, we traveled the world like
You
teaching. It was
did.
so much fun and so much passion. But he's an incredible instructor. So if anybody can pull him out of retirement of teaching, maybe I'll have him on here one week, but get him out of retirement to teach. He's phenomenal, and he relays it so well. But I don't know. That's just Travis. He's good at everything, man. He became grandmaster in 6 months. Did you know that?
Yeah, I remember him telling me a story, which is cool which is weird because Travis doesn't like telling much stories.
Unless you
But
get
when
a
he's
few drinks.
comfortable with you, that's true. When you get him comfortable with you, then he'll slip a couple of secrets here and there.
Yeah, he's a good dude, man. I miss him. I miss him. We don't get to
Great
shoot.
guy.
So if you, as an instructor, now you put on your instructor hat and you're working out, somewhere at a range somewhere, and somebody comes up and says, "Hey, man, I just started shooting. What's some of the greatest advice you can give to a beginner shooter, just getting started, whether it be competitive shooting, defensive shooting, or just shooting in general? What's one of those kind of two or three things you give someone as good advice for a beginner?"
I just tell them to be real comfortable with their weapons manipulation, and they can get that through dry fire. Do a lot of reps on that. So when they go to the range, they don't look foolish or they're not nervous about dropping their gun or something stupid like that. And then I tell them to be accurate. This you can push speed when it's close distance, but just become accurate. Learn how to be accurate by watching your sights and feeling the trigger. But those two things are, to me, prioritized. Everything else kind of comes in secondhand and is a byproduct of you doing the right things initially. As long as your weapons handling is good and you're safe handling and manipulating that gun, then you can feel comfortable pushing yourself in matches when you're tested. And then being accurate is super important, obviously, because now if you're shooting a match and you're being tested in front of people that judges you no matter whether good or bad, whether you like it or not, you step up to that line and it says, "Are you ready? Stand by," and the buzzer goes off. What you do between that buzzer and your first shot and your last shot, people are judging you, whether you're their friends or not. Mine sometimes was like, "Oh, damn, that was pretty bad. I would not want to do that after I ran a stage." Or sometimes it's like, "Gosh dang, that was a good blazing run." Like, so it's either or, right? So if you're good with your weapons handling and you can hit the targets that you're aiming at or you're shooting at, you're going to be golden eventually. And you're not going to DQ yourself. You're not going to do something stupid. You're not going to be nervous about drawing your gun because you've already done thousands and thousands of reps. So I think as a new shooter, I always tell them, make sure your weapons handling is solid as can be. If you can look like a grandmaster manipulating your gun, you're going to become that good shooter. And people are going to stop questioning you and be nervous about you being on the range manipulating your gun. But if you look like all this and fumbling, all that stuff, and you're trying to rush, people get nervous right away, and then more pressure's on you, more eyes are on you because people are now looking and watching you closely.
Yeah, and those new shooters they're probably nervous themselves because they don't want to make a mistake. You know what I mean? Like they're not thinking about
No,
winning at that point. They're thinking about
no.
just being safe. So I think, like you said, it's important that they get into the dry fire mode. Maybe watch some videos of yourself, myself, Travis Tomasi, Mike Seeklander, those kind of guys that we talked about earlier, and just understand the safety behind it and just start slow. So I think that's a great point, is just really focus on the safety aspect and then the rest comes with it later. But another question I had for you is who did you really look up to, growing up? Was it basketball, football, baseball? Who was that kind of your hero growing up, I guess? And then once you got into the shooting sports, who was that hero as well for you?
So in the Philippines, I grew up in the Philippines, right, all the way to like 1993, 13 years old. So in the shooting world, it was Rob Latham. That was always the thing because we'd see VHS videos of him, and he was the guy that was first pushed out there before social media was. They had VHS tapes and DVDs of him, and then you would see this. We would get it late in the Philippines and all that stuff. In terms of just in general, it was Bruce Lee for me. Of being Asian, my dad was very heavy in martial arts. He was,
Oh, cool. Okay.
black belt and all that stuff. He was a black belt in Judo Commando. He was a black belt in Shudokan Karate. So I was into that thing and world, and he would push me in terms of discipline with that. And we would watch a lot of obviously Bruce Lee movies and all these other things. And then the shooting world, it was always Rob Latham. And then it was crazy because I never thought I would be able to have that possibility or ability, or not ability, that opportunity to compete with a guy like Rob Latham until I actually first saw him. And I was here in the US and I'm like, my goodness, that's Rob Latham. And then I looked over to the right and I'm like, that's Doug Koenig. I was like, these are two guys that and then I'm like, holy cow, there's Jerry Barnhart right behind him, the smallest guy out of the trio. So it was one of those things. And Rob Latham was the guy I looked up to. And I'm fortunate enough now to call him a friend. And I text him once in a while and he's constantly giving me advices and stuff like that. So he's still mentoring me, even though he doesn't want to, because he doesn't want to do what he did with Doug Koenig and then the results, how Doug started beating him and all that stuff. So he doesn't want to give me too much, he says. So he's always holding back, whatever. But he does give me great advice. And he's had a huge impact in my life, besides obviously my dad. So, he's had a huge impact in terms of my shooting career and how I teach.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think same with me, like as a kid, you always want to be, Michael Jordan. You want to be that football, baseball, basketball player. I remember, I don't know if you remember that commercial, Want to Be Like Mike. Remember that Gatorade commercial? So I remember being in the yard, dude, dribbling balls, like, want to be like Max. I'd always say Max. I want to be like Max. I want to be like Max. Couldn't hit a shot, but, I remember there was a conscious decision that I made when I was 13 years old. I was like, man, I love football, baseball, basketball. I was all-star in all these sports. I traveled to all these events, and it was so much fun. But I had to make that decision, like, hey, what do you want to do with your life? When we're younger, we all have this gigantic focus. And as we get older, we have this kind of narrow focus on something that we love and that we're passionate about to become the very best. You really need that focus and that kind of driven mindset. But I did the same thing you did, man. Like, you're thinking, and I always wanted to be the next Rob Latham. I mean, he was the first one, It's like, I remember laying in the back of my dad's van because we would travel to all these matches on the weekends. We were going to Area 4 once. It was a long, long time ago. I think I was like 12 or 13 years old. I was laying in the back of the van because I never stayed up. If we were going anywhere more than an hour, I was sleeping in the car. So I'd be sleeping and then I'd just look up at the sky. It would be dark because we left after school one day. And, I remember thinking like, man, I want to be Rob Latham. I want to be Rob Latham because he was the type of guy that was winning matches back then, but he would also in the lunch line, like, steal your chips, or, he would do something silly like that would make him look like a real person and not just this huge superstar that we looked up to. But there were so many, that were there, like you said. Tyre Jarrett was another huge kind of inspiration for me. Travis Tomasi was another one. But you look at Jerry Barnhart, and now like Doug Koenig. I remember the first time I went to the Steel Challenge. I had just joined the Army. It was 1999, and Jay Christie. I don't know if you remember Jay Christie.
Oh yeah,
Dude,
I ran into him a few years ago.
Yeah. I see him every now and then too, man. It's awesome. I think he's living in New York now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but he was a huge inspiration in my life. And I remember I went to the Steel Challenge with him, and he brought me to dinner one night, and sitting right across the table from me was Rob Latham and Doug Koenig. And I was like, oh my.
That's when you knew you made it.
Yeah, that's when I knew I made it. I was trying to be super cool with it, but I'm like, man, these dudes are legit. These are the real guys. And back then, obviously Robbie had won so much stuff, and then Dougie was like the man too. He had won the first world championship with a red dot. There's so many things that he had accomplished in the Yankee Cup. And at that time, I think he won 3 or 4 Steel Challenges, and we were at the Steel Challenge. He was a super fierce competitor, man. He was scary sometimes. But me and Doug, we kind of established this relationship because I think it was in 2005 when I had won my first Steel Challenge. He was second place. And we became you remember that shoot-off back then?
Yes.
It was so awesome.
I was paired up with Jared Mikulik on 2005 shoot-offs.
Dude.
And I got a story for that, too.
Okay, well, we might not have time for that tonight, but because it's probably something bad about me.
No. It's a funny story about Jared Mikulik.
Yeah, so look, that's how Doug and I kind of really became friends, because I was young, but I was fast. Like, if it was a big target and it was close, I was going to take it down quick. But if you remember, they had like those real big targets in the front,
yes,
small targets in the back.
So the plates.
Yeah, I feel like I had the best partner in the world, because Doug, that dude can shoot little things easy, and I can shoot the big things easy. So we get up to shoot the first stage or the first event. We're like the #1 team, so I think we're going against the number 16 team. And he looks at me. We're just getting ready to load up, and he looks at me and says, "Hey, mother F, are you nervous?" And I was like, "Nah, man. Why? Should I be nervous?" He's like, "Because this is how I feed my kids. This is how I do my business. So you better hit them damn targets." And I'm like, I'm nervous now, sir." So, but anyway, man, we crushed it, man. We had so much fun doing it. And ever since then, like, I went to his house and trained with him. He come to my house and trained with me. And we became really good friends. And he's been an unbelievable mentor for me from the business aspect and the shooting aspect of shooting. My father's been an unbelievable inspiration, but Doug was definitely one of those guys that I looked up to and I continue to look up to in the shooting game and for guidance. I mean, I talk to him almost weekly about what I can do to be a better ambassador and a better shooter and a better businessman. He's a lot like us too, man. He's a great family guy. He's got kids. He's got a wife that he's been with for years and years through all this traveling and whatnot. But it's really cool to see that. But I want to know these last few minutes that we have here for you. Now that looking back at that, so you found yourself at that point. I found myself at that table, with Rob Latham and Todd and Doug Koenig. How is it now? Like when people look at you, like, oh my God, that's the Razor. How is it now? Looking at like, I know you probably don't see yourself that way. Neither do I. But how does it feel when people say, "Wow, that's JJ"? Like you're getting ready to shoot, and like, guys, come see, JJ's up. How does that make you feel, man?
Bro, it's so weird. I don't know if you ever get used to it, right? It's just, it blows my mind. It actually gives me goosebumps the more I talk about it. It's just, I'm a kid from the Philippines, man. We didn't have much money. I shot a 45. People give us bullets because that's the only way we could continue to shoot because we couldn't afford it, right? And here I am now. I have the ability to be hired all over the place and travel and teach classes, not only to civilians but military and law enforcement, and to be looked up as oh man, someone that they idolize or whatever. It's just so weird too.
Yeah.
I can never. I don't think I'll ever get used to that feeling of this guy or I'm the guy that they're looking up to and people. It's the weirdest feeling in the world, but it gives me goosebumps because it's something that I didn't even have the ability to think I dreamt of this day to happen. No, I didn't have that ability because I couldn't foresee what was going to happen. It just happened. And then looking back, I'm like, how did this happen? Right. It was just, and it was like, what kept you motivated throughout these years? And I don't know. It was just a chase to trying to become the best me, not to try to beat somebody. It was just the best me. And then it just so happened to be, I don't know, put me in this position nowadays. So literally, it's a topic that I can, or something that I cannot, and I highly regard it. And that's why I really appreciate that we have followers, and I don't even like to call them fans because they're our friends in the industry, right? That supports us, and we support them as well. And that's why you do this live out of on your own dime and your time, because you're very generous with your time and to be able to give back. So it's super cool. So it blows my mind to have people think, oh, sign this and give this, and can you just sign and take a picture and sign it and send it to me, or send me one of your trophies, because I don't keep any of my trophies much except for a couple of good ones, but they're hidden in a way anyway. But it's one of those things. So I'm sure you can relate to go to SHOT Show or have people line up to see you. It's fine to have that opportunity nowadays.
It's so cool. And I think that's why people love you so much. And I hope that's why they appreciate my game and what I do as well, because we're very much the same, you and I, in that regard. We really focus on being humble, #1. I always tell my kids, man, you want to be the most humble person out there. Even if you are the very best at what you do, you want to be the most humble person out there, because it does two things. #1, you always act as if someone is bigger, better, faster, and stronger than you, and you'll never get outworked, and you'll always be the type of person that people want to associate with. And that is more important than any championship you can ever win. So I mean, like, listening to you talk, man, I just can't thank you enough for jumping on here with us and chatting, give us all your knowledge that you have, and really showing that side of you, that kind of that inside, what people don't always see. They see JJ laughing, smiling, having a great time. But deep down, you're a fierce competitor, man, but you do it the right way. You're an unbelievable family man. Like I said, you got great kids, great wife, and the support that you guys have between you guys and your father and your family, and it's incredible. So that's why people love you. And that's why whenever anybody asks me, hey, Max, who do you think's a good guy for this sponsorship? You're always the first person I think of.
You
No
do, you
doubt.
do, always do. Thank you, Max.
So, look, hey, before you run, we got just a couple more minutes before this thing
Mhm.
closes out. I don't know, it might close out on us, but hopefully we got a couple more minutes. Tell us your quick story on Jerry Mitchell, real quick.
So quick story. It's the same thing, right? If Jerry Mickler walks in and goes, I believe you're my partner. And I'm like, yeah, Mr. Jerry, I'm so excited.